Okay, so I wanted to say thank you, Mona. Thank you from the
No,
bottom of
thank
my
you
heart.
too.
Well, thank you
Thank
again.
you.
You know, I guess both of us are very grateful for this opportunity. Um, and
Definitely.
I really like to be able to highlight the stories of women on the Prison to Promise podcast. And it isn't too often that I have an opportunity to talk to a woman about her experiences with prison and all those things that surround that. So again, I'm very grateful to you for your time and for your willingness to trust me and the listeners with your story.
Thank you so much.
And so maybe if we could just jump right in, sis, and
Okay.
ask you to introduce yourself to the listeners, tell people who you are, maybe where you're from, and maybe what led to your time in prison.
Okay. Well, my name is Emunah Evans. Everybody calls me Monah. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. I was incarcerated here in North Carolina. I moved around a lot when I was in prison because I got incarcerated during the COVID when the pandemic was at an all-time high. So I kind of moved around a lot. I started off in Raleigh, which is NCCIW, and it's basically the holding facility, or what do you call it, the processing facility for all women in North Carolina. Start off there, and then
Mhm.
I kind of went to. After that, I went to Noose, which was in Goldsboro, I
Mhm.
believe, and then I stayed there for about a year and a half and got transferred to Anson Correctional, where I finished out my time. Basically, what led up to my incarceration was basically, like I said, I was originally from Michigan. I was in an abusive relationship for 8 years with my kid's father. So I kind of decided to, pack up my kids. I got tired of that life and decided I wanted to move to North Carolina, basically for a fresh start. And I came here with family members. So I had family here that was here in North Carolina. So I actually came to live with one of my family members and his wife. Things were pretty good in the beginning. They helped me out a lot. I started realizing like, okay, I like it here. I want to set my roots here, fresh start. So of course I started, looking for employment opportunities and things like that. So they assisted me with caring for my children at the
Beautiful.
time because daycares are very high and expensive, as we all know. And at the time I
Absolutely.
wasn't financially stable to provide that. So I felt that it was a blessing in disguise that they were able to help me with that help as far as continually watching my children. So basically, short story, um in the process of them watching my kids, my one of my children was severely beating. He was
Mhm.
beat basically to an inch of his life,
Oh.
and the perpetrator was my family member, the person
Mhm.
I trusted to care for my child. At the time, I wasn't really sure on exactly the details of what happened at that moment. So I did go to the home to confront my family member, what happened and things like that. And in the process of me confronting him, things kind of went left. He attacked me. In the process of him attacking me, I grabbed a butter knife out of
Mhm.
the kitchen sink and I stabbed him.
Mhm.
Um, he subsided to his injuries and he did pass away. So that's
Mhm.
how I ended up going to prison. I sat in county for 16 months, fighting my case. Originally, they did charge me with capital murder. They did eventually drop it down to first degree murder. Um, the DA was giving me a hard time. They kind of really did not want to drop it down because they said I had a lot of mediating factors as far as it being premeditated.
Oh wow.
So I ended up eventually getting a pretty good lawyer, and he got to drop down to voluntary manslaughter. That's what I pled guilty to, and they gave
Mhm.
me 4.5 years in North Carolina State Prison.
Wow. And how much time did you do out of that 4.5?
I did the whole 4.5. Like I said, I did 16 months
Mm.
inside of the county jail. So they did give me that time credited. So then I did the remainder time in the prison system.
Wow. Mona, I want to say thank you for sharing that piece of your history with us. I know it has to be tough just living with those memories. And at the same time, you know, a couple things were coming to my head as you were talking. And one of the things is that so many women who are in prison are mothers. They have children.
Mhm.
And another thing is that so many children, many children suffer abuse. And most of the time, the abuse is happening at the hands of people who are closest to us, our family members, or someone
Mhm.
close to our family, the people that we trust. And so it's not rare that these things happen. But as a mother, as a mommy lion, you want to know what's going on. How can I protect my children? And I might need to set somebody straight. And unfortunately, things got out of hand, but you had to
Mhm.
preserve your life. And so it's very heavy,
Like I
very
said
heavy.
before, like I've said time and time again, you know, from past interviews and things like that, I'm not a violent person. I never,
Hmm.
this was the first time I ever been incarcerated, you know. This is the first time I ever had any legal issues besides traffic tickets.
Hmm.
So, you know, for me, like I told you in the listening session, it was very traumatic because prison wasn't something that I was prepared for. And
Right.
then, you know, just dealing with the fact that even though that person did what he did, it still was not
Hmm.
my intentions to take his
Right.
life.
Right.
So that's something that I'm constantly struggling with to this day. Is just
Yeah.
the thought that, you know, no matter what a person does, it
Hmm.
wasn't my decision to actually take his life. It wasn't that
Right.
wasn't something that I wanted to do, but you know things play out that way. So I'm working on it. You know, as far as
Yeah.
forgiving myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that sometimes is a lifelong process. And I feel comfortable in saying that because I went to prison for a very violent offense as well. And I had a 4 to 12 year sentence and I did 8 years on it. Um, but I was the perpetrator of the crime. And I realized that not only did I traumatize the person that I injured, but I also traumatized myself. And I think people
Mhm.
fail to realize that when we act in violent ways, especially when we're not trying to be violent, but even if we are, what happens is we end up becoming traumatized and we live out that trauma and it can
Mhm.
impact us. But you said something very powerful, which was, I'm working on forgiving myself. I'm working on moving forward and moving through that, you know, so my hat's off to you.
Thank you. And it's on both ends. Like I said, even still forgiving myself for, you know, as a parent, our job is to protect our children. So,
Yeah.
you know, just for the simple fact that my son was a victim of a crime and me being his parent, I still struggle with that guilt of, you know, not being able to protect him. I
Yeah.
still feel inadequate as a parent
Yeah.
because I'm like, why did this happen to my child?
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, so it's it's both ways that I'm struggling with it. You know, I have a lot of people that tell me all the time, like, you know, if I was in your shoes, I would have did the same thing. And
Yeah.
and it's kind of like a win and it's not really a win and lose situation. Like
You're right.
it was a real messed up situation.
Or like you said, a fucked up situation.
Yeah. I wasn't
And
sure if you wanted me to curse.
it's all good. We keep it raw, keep it 100% here, you know, so be yourself here, you know. But
Okay.
yeah, life is not pretty. Life is messy and sometimes bad things happen. But at the end of the day, you preserved your life and you went there to protect your child. And so I'm glad that you're here and you're able to talk about your story because one of the things I know for sure is that often many women who find themselves in prison are there because of some crazy stuff that some dude did or something that is
Yeah.
connected to some dude, be it their lover or their family or whatever. But a lot of times it's connected to some male presence, you know. So my hat goes off to you again, for
Yeah.
being the strong woman that you are.
Thank
And
you.
so tell me, like, at what point, like, did you start to, I guess, confront yourself or think about what happened in your life and start to think about how you can live your life different once you got out of prison?
It started in prison. So I'm a firm believer on karma. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that sometimes the things that happen to us in our lives, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes it don't hit right away. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of felt that everything that I was going through at that moment was things I wouldn't say like I was the best person in the world prior to incarceration or prior to, what happened, I have did things in my life also that, that I wasn't, that I just didn't get caught for, or, I did some things, I hurt people before also. So,
Yeah.
in emotional ways and things like that. So I kind of, when I got there, my main focus was, okay, I got my time now. I got 4 years to do, knock this time out. Behind everything, I was still a parent. My goal was
Right.
the quickest way to get back to my kids and also be a better person than I was before I went into prison. That was my main focus. So I sat there a lot. I did a lot of reading, self-healing books. I got in my Bible also a lot. I know that's really cliche. A lot of people go to prison and find religion. It wasn't
Right.
really that I went to prison and found religion. I just, it's a whole different ball game behind those walls. And I needed
Yeah.
something stronger than myself to
Mm-hmm.
believe in. I needed something that I can lock in on. So God was a big thing for me when I was incarcerated. So, like I said, I just tapped into those abilities, started working on myself personally, and I set goals out. I kind of knew what the steps I needed to take to get my kids back.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I made a pact with God when I was kind of in jail, in
Mm-hmm.
the county jail, when I didn't know how much time I was gonna get. But I
Yeah.
hit my knees a lot, and I
Yeah.
prayed and I said, if I got a second chance, I'm gonna do it right this time. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying it's gonna be easy. I'm not saying that, that I'm gonna stay straight the whole way, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna do everything in my power to do it right. So I worked on myself a lot.
Yeah.
And then I met so many women, like you said, that went through these experiences and they didn't have release dates. So
Yeah.
just listening to their stories and, and I'm thinking about it, I was one of the lucky ones. I did get a second chance. So not only did I wanted to work on myself, but I also made a promise that once I came home, that I was going to work on helping these women,
Right.
not maybe physically getting them out of prison, but just being that comfort for them, that support system that they needed.
Yeah.
So I worked on myself a lot while I was incarcerated.
That's so pertinent and so important, and it resonates with me that you talked about that, because it makes me think of my own experience. I had to ask myself, hey man, how the fuck did you end up here in prison? And I realized it was my own thinking. And so I had to really start addressing my thinking and
Mhm.
restructuring it. And like you, I did a lot of reading, a lot of self-help, a lot of groups, started talking with other incarcerated people that have been in forever, probably never got out, probably died in there. But they sold into me. They mentored me because they knew I was going to get out. And like you, I said, okay, when I get out, I'm going to help other people who are stuck in these situations. And so I think it's up
Exactly.
to us, because nobody's going to help us like we help ourselves. So we have to be a beacon of light to other people, you know.
Yes.
What would you suggest for like other young ladies who might find themselves in sticky situations that might lead to imprisonment? They might be in bad relationships, or they might be in prison trying to get out or waiting to get out. Like, what type of advice would you pass on?
One, I feel like with my situation, I let it drag on too long. Get out immediately, especially when you're dealing with a domestic violence situation. Like I said, I dealt with mine for 8 years before I decided to up and leave. Get out immediately. When you see the signs, you see the red flags, don't wait, get out immediately. And then also seek help. That was something I suffered in silence. I
Yeah,
didn't tell my family, I didn't tell my friends, I didn't reach out to nobody for help. I was
wow,
embarrassed,
yeah,
but seek help, because sometimes if we can't help ourselves, just by us being able to reach out, and you never know who could be that person for you, who can actually help you. So, just like I said, reach out.
that's so important. And being aware of oneself and not letting uh, embarrassment or shame keep us stuck. Because if we stay stuck, then we're only going to get what's in those places, and it ain't much.
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful as well. And so, like, what kind of help would you say would be the best kind of help? Or does it differ according to what situations are?
For a person that's incarcerated and they're coming upon their release, for me, like my rehabilitation moment. was out. Prison didn't rehabilitate me.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was a self-help thing. I reached out when I knew I was coming up on my release date. I knew I couldn't go home to Michigan. Like I said, I'm not from North Carolina. So I knew I needed support. I needed community support. I needed housing. I needed employment.
Mhm.
So I kind of reached out to these reentry programs. And I was lucky enough to find a really great program that I ended up coming to after prison. And that program, the name of the program is Benevolence Farm. They're located in Graham. They gave me that foundation that I needed. So they gave me, that safe housing.
Yeah.
They gave me that employment immediately after
Wow.
prison. And so that gave me, after I realized I had my basic needs met,
Hmm.
that gave me the time to kind of take a breath and think about my next steps as an individual. Like, okay, where do I go from here? Where do I want to contribute? Um, what goals do I have? So I
Wow.
had a really good foundation. So just seeking that foundation, whether it's from family or friends, or if you
Hmm.
don't have that, like I said, reaching out to these reentry programs. There's a lot of nonprofit organizations across the state that's
Hmm.
willing to help. Reach
Yeah.
out to them.
Wow. And you hit it right on the head too. Um, some of the biggest challenges that people coming out of prison have is housing and employment. And without having proper housing and employment, it's difficult to start plotting your next moves so that you can
Mhm.
make a better contribution to this world. And then another thing you hit on was having supports, the right kind of supports, those
Mhm.
pro-social supports where people can help you do things that are good for society, good for the culture, good for yourself. And so that's very important. So thanks for shedding light on that. But at the same time, can you talk about maybe what were some of your greatest challenges and how you overcame those?
Absolutely. So, like I said, I came to a reentry program. I was provided that housing and employment while I was in the initial program. Once I realized, I was at a good place in my life, I wanted to move on from the program. So I needed, to seek my own housing so I can bring my children, have a home for them. And also, I needed a job in the community. That's really when like the barriers and the challenges really got me down. Housing for anyone that's formerly incarcerated is pretty much non-existent. The process is very draining.
Hmm.
Um, it took me months to even find housing. I got denied, a lot for the application because of my criminal background. And then just by me having what they consider a violent offense, that was like two strikes on me or automatically.
Right.
One, you a felon. Two, oh, you ain't, and you got a violent felony. Yeah,
Hmm.
so the answer was kind of no every time. Then also the financial burden. I ran into a lot of places that was basically for security reasons because of my felony. They wanted me to pay double my security deposit to move in. Um, I went through pretty much all of my savings just on application fees, just
Wow.
because of these companies knew that I had a felony record,
Hmm.
so they automatically denied me. Um, Also the employment, like I said before, prior to incarceration, I was in nursing school.
Hmm.
Um, I had a good job as a CNA then, and so when I got this felony record, I couldn't pursue that
Yeah.
afterwards. So yeah, I couldn't pursue my career forward in my career. So I kind of had to let that go, and I had to pivot and basically survive. So I
Yeah.
put in applications at like Walmart, Food Lion, places that I would never apply for prior to incarceration, and I got denied
Wow.
even from employment from those places. So you got to think about it from a person that's not used to things like this. That really hurt my confidence. That took away my dignity because I'm like, dang, I can't even get hurt in Walmart to bag groceries. Like it's
Wow.
that bad.
Yeah, it's
So I
horrible.
went, yeah, I went through a whole depression moment at that moment because I'm like, I wanted to give up because I'm like, how can I even get my kids back when I can't even secure housing and employment? How is this
Right.
possible? Not only I can't even help myself. So how can I be a parent? And so, like I said, my program that I work for, and then just the community support and the connections I built while I was in the program is kind of what helped me. I got a second job as a caregiver for a company that overlooked my criminal record. They wanted to give me a chance. I've been working for them almost a year and a half now. The re-entry program that I was resident for, they offered me a position here as the Family Reunification Advocate because they saw the dedication that I had as a resident as far as like, trying to get my foundation together for my kids. So they put me in a position where I can help other women that come through our program do the same thing that I did. So the employment worked out. I eventually ended up finding housing. Um, and like I said, I still had to pay double the security deposit to move into the place, but I eventually ended up finding housing.
That's really dope. And what I hear in your story there, in that segment of your story, is perseverance. I was faced with all types of obstacles, impediments, shut doors, but I continued to press forward. Because I'm sure you've seen it. I've seen it. People in our positions who are coming out of prison with felony convictions, because of all of the denials, a lot of people just give up and say, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing. I'm going to go back and throwing bricks or robbing, stealing or whatever, prostituting, whatever it is I got to do to make ends meet. And the system wants us to come out of prison and do well for
Absolutely.
ourselves. But yet nobody wants to give us a second chance or third chance, So I like to use this term, bass backwards. Society and the system is so bass backwards towards those of us who've been in prison.
Absolutely.
You also, I want to touch on before we get out of here, because I think it's important. You mentioned your employer, Benevolence Farms, and how they gave you a hand. Can you talk a little bit more about Benevolence Farms and maybe speak to anyone out there, any woman who's out there listening who might be looking for a place that can help her get herself together? What would you say about Benevolence Farms as far as what do y'all do? What are your programs, and et cetera, et cetera?
Absolutely. So Benevolence Farm, we're located in Graham. We right now have two locations. So we have a location here in Graham, and then we have a more independent housing located in Burlington. But we house formerly incarcerated women. There really isn't any criteria on how to get into the program. You can just write us. We are well known in the prison systems here in North Carolina. So the case managers, you can contact your case manager on how to apply for the program. Basically, anyone that is identifies as a woman can come to our program. We house up to 10 women at a time. At our farmhouse, where initially the women come, we have 6 beds. We have 6 beds available at a time. Basically, we do wraparound services. We help with the women getting their birth certificates, all their official documents they need. Like I said, we have an employment ready here. We have an enterprise side where the women make candles. We have a 13-acre farm where you get that outside experiences being out here. We plant different herbs and things like that we put into the products. So the social enterprise will be the employment. The women make $15 an hour here, part time right now, but that's the employment side of Benevolence Farm. But we also help, like I said, with we do healing, a lot of mental health support, community building support also. So it's a really good program. Also, with me being a family reunification manager here, I started a program called Bonding Families. So basically, Bonding Families is a support group. We reside in Alamance County. We have in-person meetings once a month, every Thursday, the second Thursday of every month here in Alamance. I'm working on getting it on Zoom right now. Bonding Families is also in the prison system. So just say if you got someone that cannot come to the program due to us being over capacity and they're looking for other reentry programs, women in prison can reach out to me. I can help them find, housing, whether it be another reentry program or they looking to reunite with family members. I'm that buffer between them. A lot of case managers sometimes don't have the capacity to help everybody.
That's true,
So
and people fall to the wayside.
Exactly. So I'm that person that you can contact and be that person, your support person, if you don't have one. Um, we do a lot of work, like I said, with family reunification. My main goal is preparing women to get their children back. Bonding families focus on a lot of self healing. I say
Mhm.
this so much, like in order to even think about getting your kids back, just the trauma for being incarcerated, you have to work
Yeah.
on yourself
Oh yeah.
first. You have to
So
stabilize your mental health before you can even step back into parenthood. So that's, I'm just trying to do my part as far as getting
yeah.
back and preparing women to be in that position. Families are important to our society. They're important to they are our communities.
Absolutely. I was
So,
gonna say this, that.
yep. So we got to keep them together.
Absolutely. Yeah. Without families, what is society? What is the
Hmm.
community? When I think about community, I think about two words: common unity. So we have to build this sense or this capacity of common unity to build our family. And sometimes family is not even blood. It's our people who live next door to us or our friends, but it's those
Hmm.
people that we can trust and who can trust us and we love. And so that's really powerful stuff there. Really powerful stuff. I think you're doing an awesome job, Mona. And I just want to applaud you. So I don't know if you hear me clapping. You know, we, I think, I think we need more services for women too who are coming out of prison because I don't think there's enough services and enough attention paid to women who've been impacted by the criminal legal system, and particularly the trauma that's heaped upon folks. And I know most people who go to prison, they come into prison with a bag load of trauma, and then they get re
Yeah.
traumatized in prison. If they don't work on themselves, they come out of prison and re traumatize people around them or traumatize people around them. And one of the things you talked about is helping women get their kids back and working on themselves. I know, I think it was Bob Marley who sang, he said, none but ourselves can free our minds, you know,
Hmm.
and that's working on that trauma. And trauma, there's this book I've been reading on trauma. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. And it talks about how trauma impacts us throughout our lives from not just psychological and emotional issues, but also physiologically. Trauma shows up and causes all types of illnesses in our body. So, yeah, we have to work on ourselves.
And we don't
Have
want
to.
to pass that on to our families or our kids. So that's why it's so imperative for us to, work on that trauma and work through it because, just like you have that saying, generational wealth, you can
Mhm.
also pass on generational trauma. So I don't
Absolutely.
want my kids to experience, the trauma that I went through, or I'm passing down my hurt through
Hmm.
generation after generation. So
Hmm.
it's a continuous cycle. I want it. You got to stop it. I want it to end.
Yeah.
So just immediately addressing that trauma and seeking help and getting help for it, working through it and healing, heal
Hmm.
from it.
Yeah, yeah. And you said that earlier in our discussion, the importance of getting help and healing yourself, So I think that that's the constant theme through this conversation, really, is healing yourself, addressing your trauma, addressing your shortcomings so that you can return back to your family a better version of yourself before that than you were before you went to prison. And we know that prison typically sends people back home in worse condition than when they came in,
Yes. And
but
it's
there is.
resources.
Go
There's
ahead.
resources here. It's resources in our communities.
Mhm.
It's sad to say that even what I'm realizing in the prison systems, racial equality is not
Yeah.
equal.
No.
When we have these programs like Benevolence Farm and different programs around the communities, the case managers, when they do want to help, it's like they decide who they want to have access to these resources or who they
Mhm.
want to refer to these programs and
Yeah.
things like that. So everyone should have equal opportunities,
Hmm.
you know. So that's another thing also that I'm working with as far as making sure that everybody, especially the black and brown people, that we
Yeah.
have access to these resources like everyone else.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we all need it. Everyone that's
All of
been
us.
incarcerated, we all need it. We experienced
Absolutely.
enough. We shouldn't have to deal with that also with, we all are labeled formerly incarcerated.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's another thing that I'm working towards is I'm not, saying as far as like I said, I'm saying what I'm saying is, getting it out there for my people also to give.
Yeah.
And these people that's not that's what they consider undeserving, or the people that's forgotten.
Yeah,
Those are the
marginalized
ones
groups.
that want to help. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Wow, that's heavy. So, as we're coming up probably about on our last 5 minutes together, um, again, I'm just so grateful for you sharing your wisdom, your insight, your experiences. I'm sure this is going to bless somebody's life, somebody's trajectory. But two things, or maybe three, but one is, what would you like to share with, say, society about the potential for transformation and redemption? Because they think that if we're in prison, we can't transform or we can't be redeemed. A lot of people think that anyway.
Well, one, you never know. You never know until you give somebody a chance. That's number one. So with that being said, just by setting someone up for success
Mm,
as a society, that's where it starts at.
mm,
Right now our system isn't set up for people to succeed. So it's not that the people is not succeeding or they're failing. It's how our system is currently set up that is
mhm.
causing our people to fail. So
Yeah,
just by giving people that foundation that they need, then okay, then it will be up to them on how, what they do with it and how they move and what their success stories will be.
right on.
So that's number one for me. Like, just set people up to succeed.
Hmm.
It shouldn't be hard to find housing. It shouldn't be hard to find a job because there's plenty of jobs out here.
Hmm. Hmm.
So just giving people that fair opportunity is everybody else. That's
Right.
number one.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, we have to set people up for success instead of failure, because our rates of failure, post incarceration failure, are bananas. They're out the roof. And I think that's because of all the impediments that have been set for people who coming out of prison. You know, my other question is, if you could entitle your journey in a catchphrase or as the title of a movie or a book or just of your life, what would that title be, or what would that catchphrase be?
I always say, um, I was thinking about for a long time, like I wanted to get my story out there more, and it would be empowerment. I feel like everything that I've done up to and to this point had everything to do with the people I was around. Empowerment is very powerful. When you feel empowered as a person, is what motivated me, is what kept me going. Is at times where I felt like I wanted to give up. It was
Mm,
that feeling of empowerment that I was receiving from my community and my
mm,
society that kept me moving. Even when
mm,
I felt that the cards were stacked against me, or I felt like
mm.
things weren't going my way,
Yeah.
it was always that empowerment that I was
Mm.
receiving from, the people around me in my community that kept me moving forward.
Wow. That makes me think of like a seed, a tree's seed planted in fertile soil. The
Hmm.
fertile soil gives it the empowerment to grow, and then the right environment helps it to continue to grow so that it reaches its maximum potential. That's the image I get from when you say empowerment. That's really powerful, really powerful. And lastly, Monah, if people wanted to reach you, if they wanted to connect with you, how can they reach out to you?
Also, they basically through my email, Emunah at benevolencefarm.org. They can also go on our website under the advocacy page and reach out to me. It's www.benevolencefarm.com.
Mhm.
Like I said, they can apply for the Benevolence Farm program. Also, we do have another program for women that cannot come to our program. It's called the Housing First Fund. This fund offers women security. We're paying security deposits. Once you find a place, once you get approved, you fill out our application for our housing fund, and we will pay your security deposit. Just over the weekend, I was blessed with a client that I've been working with for 2 months now. We finally got her into a place. She just got her keys with
Right on.
incorporation with Benevolence Farm. We paid her security deposit to take some of that financial burden off of her.
Mhm.
So She's doing fine. I also just as of today just got another client that's incarcerated into two reentry programs, which is a great feeling because we all know sometimes that we got to take what we can get, but just
Right.
giving people that option to decide on what they want.
Yeah.
I ask my clients when they come to me all the time, like, what do you want? What do you want from me? What do you need me to do? And those words, a lot of formerly incarcerated people, they're not used to hearing it.
That's
So it's foreign to them. So giving people options, just letting them know that you have the option on what you want. What you want matters. So please reach out. Like I said, just reach out. There's no criteria on where you're located. We helping people all around North Carolina. We even take some women from federal prisons. As you know, federal prisons, they move around, so they're not based in North Carolina. So if you're identified as a woman and you need assistance, please reach out. If I can't help you, I have a lot of connections with other programs I'm connected to that can assist you.
That's dope. And with that, I'm gonna call it a wrap, Monah. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you for your wisdom and your insights.
Thank you.